Welcome to the Introduction to Solfege video. Over the course of the next few minutes, we're going to talk about the basic ideas of rhythm that we use in choir. The most important foundation of rhythm is the beat. So the beat is a pulse that has even space between each downbeat. So you'll hear something like this. You'll hear that each of those four clicks had the same amount of space between them, and it's what you would tap your foot to if you were listening to a song. So here we have a series of arrows, and the down arrows are representing the down beats. You'll see four of them there. And then the up arrows are representing the up beats. So if you were to tap your foot to this tempo, then you would find your foot hitting the ground when you hear my fingers snap, and then your foot has to come back up in order to hit the ground again. So that's where we get this down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. So if you were to hear a rhythm like this, ba, 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 then that would be all down arrows. So we call that the downbeat. So whenever we're rehearsing something with rhythm, it's important that you keep the beat somewhere on your body. A lot of people will tap their foot. Some people will tap their hand on their knee. Whatever works for you. Now that you know the difference between downbeats and upbeats, I would like to draw your attention to the fact that you'll see that there is a downbeat and one upbeat. So the beat is divided into two parts. So here we have the first two arrows creating one beat, and one beat is comprised of a downbeat and an upbeat, and then we move on to the next beat, downbeat, upbeat, and so on. When we divide the beat into two parts like this, we call it duple, which just means two. So in duple, we actually have a way to count these rhythms using solfege. Solfege is any system of language that you use to label musical sound. Okay, and there's several different ways that we can do this. We're going to start with a system developed by a gentleman named Edwin Gordon, and the downbeats are going to be called do's. So you'll see if I have a rhythm that goes ba, 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 we would call that do, 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 do. Now, if I move on and I want to label the upbeats, when my foot is coming up away from the ground, we can't call it the same thing as the downbeats because it feels different, it sounds different. So we're going to call those day. So for example, if I had ba, 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 that would be do, day, do, day, do, day, do, day. So in duple, we call the downbeats do and the upbeats day. So again, this example would sound like this. Do, day, do, day, do, day, do, day. So let's practice this for a second. If I had a rhythm that sounded like this, ba, 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 you'll hear that I had a downbeat here, a downbeat here, a downbeat here, a downbeat here, but then I also had an upbeat on the very last arrow pointing up. So that would be do, 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 day. Okay? And if you're not already, tapping your foot along with these examples would be helpful. Let's try another example. Ba, 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 ba. So that would be do, day, do, do, day, do. Do, day, do, do, day, do. Now, as I'm going through these, it's important to realize that some of the arrows are not getting labeled. So even though, for example, this second upbeat doesn't have any solfege attached to it, that doesn't mean it's not happening. So what I mean to say is this second do is being held through that upbeat to the next downbeat. Let's try another one. Sometimes downbeats also get what we call rests or silence. So for example, in this pattern, you'll hear a downbeat that has nothing happening. So here's what that sounds like. Ba, ba, ba. So there we had do, do. This third downbeat, I didn't perform anything, so we're going to leave that blank. And then finally, we have the last downbeat that was performed. So that would be do, do, do. You can also divide the beat into 3 parts. So we just talked about a couple rhythms in duple where we had a downbeat and an upbeat. Here you'll see that there's a downbeat followed by what looks like 2 upbeats. So if any of you have ever heard a waltz before, this is the kind of rhythmic division that you feel when you're listening to a waltz. Or maybe a slow ballad by your favorite band might use this kind of rhythm. Because the beats are divided into 3, we call this triple. So this is what that would sound like. Ba 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 ba. Okay? So you can see how that has that kind of dancing waltz feel. So in triple, the downbeats serve the same purpose. Our foot hits the ground, and that's the downbeat, that's the pulse of the music. So we call it the same thing as we do in duple. So that this would still sound like do, 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 but now we have different names for the division. So the first division in triple is called da, and the second division is called di. So if we were to play this out over all 4 beats, then we would get do da dee, do da dee, do da dee, do da dee. And again, the do's are the downbeats. That's what you're going to keep track of the pulse with. So if that, let's see if that can start to feel pretty comfortable for you. If you tap your foot along and just listen to these rhythms go by. Do da dee, do da dee, do da dee, do da dee. Okay? So this is the basis of triple rhythm. So now let's move into a couple of examples. Let's say in this 4 beats, I wanted a rhythm that sounded like this. Ba, 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 ba. Take a second and see if you couldn't figure out what arrows I'm going to highlight. Ba, 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 ba. Okay? So we had a downbeat, another downbeat, and then something a little bit more complicated happened. We had all parts of this beat happen. These all sounded do, da, dee. And then when I got to the last beat, it was just the downbeat again. So with solfege, that would be do, 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 da, dee, do. Try another one. Ba, 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 ba. I'll give that to you one more time. See if you can guess what the solfege is. Ba, 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 ba. So I had something on this downbeat, and then I had all of these divisions sounding, something on this beat, but then I just held over and we had this downbeat and both divisions, and then finally just that downbeat. So with solfege, that rhythm would be do da dee do, do da dee do. Let's try one more. So this time, just like with the duple rhythms, I can leave beats out to create what we call rests. So for example, if I did the following rhythm, ba 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 ba, ba ba ba. So I had these three divisions, this downbeat, and then this entire third beat I left as a rest. And then in the very last beat, I performed all three divisions. Do da dee do, do da dee. Now at this point, you probably noticed that I put inflections into the rhythms that I'm performing. And that's because really rhythm is a type of musical conversation. You're using the rhythm to emphasize certain beats and not emphasize others. It's just like when you are speaking, you put inflection in your voice to create expression. And music without expression is just wrong. So even though this might seem a little bland and you're looking at these doodaddies thinking this is ridiculous, it might be, and that's okay. But if you add some emphasis, it will hopefully start to connect to those things that you love about music, which is emotion and expression. To review a couple key terms, rhythm is the duration or length of musical sounds. The beat is what you tap your foot to, and the beat consists of two parts: the downbeat where your foot hits the ground, and the upbeat when your foot comes away from the ground. We talked about duple rhythm, which divides the beat into two parts, and triple rhythm, which divides the beats into three parts. In duple, we call those parts do and day, and in triple, we call those parts do, da, and dee. Finally, remember that when there's silence present instead of sound, in music we call that a rest. I hope you found this introduction to rhythm solfege helpful. Happy practicing.